if we can get everyone to sit up front, we have this grand room just for our chambers. And hopefully, folks will trickle in periodically, but I think we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Cynthia Jaramillo, and I serve as your Senior Vice President of Corporate Relations for the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Prior to me serving at the USHCC, I worked with that young man over there, Ernie Baca, who is the president and CEO of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber. I was the COO, and I worked at that chamber for 17 years. And so I'm very passionate about local chambers and the grassroots efforts that you all do on a daily basis. And so with that, I'm going to introduce, we're going to have a very informal conversation, by the way. And so I will hand it off to our board members who represent 6 regions across the country. And first with us today is Ruben Franco, who represents Region 1. He is the president and CEO of the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We also have with us Ernie Baca, who represents Region 2. He's the president and CEO of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. We also have Jessica Cavazos, who's the president and CEO of Region 4, and she represents the Wisconsin Latino Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to introduce Yuri Kunsa, who represents Region 6, who's the president and CEO of the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber. And last, but certainly not least, Region 5, represented by Jennifer Rodriguez, who is the president and CEO of the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to kick it to Jennifer to lead this conversation. Again, this is meant to be very informal, interactive, and happen very organically. So with that, Jennifer, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. Oh. Well, despite the congressional panel set up here in which the Gestapo or something, it just look a little bit too formal. So one of the things that we wanted to do, as you know, we represent the chamber network at the board level. And over the last few years, we have talked about having a chamber track at the conference. And so the staff of the USHCC will be planning that conference. This year, there will be an actual chamber track alongside the other tracks for small businesses and such, which I think hopefully today we can get input from you around what do you want to see in the conference, what topics, if you have any speakers, things of that nature, so we can have a real rich opportunity for the chambers. The other thing we want to do is we want to be a bit more coordinated when we represent and we advocate for local chambers at the board level. And we have a quick anonymous survey that if you scan that and you at your leisure, between today and tomorrow, you respond to the survey, should be very quick. It will help us really gather some thoughts and some topics as well on work that needs to be done more strategically at the board level. So we're looking to have a more coordinated approach, right? I don't need to be the person that speaks all the time, but go ahead.
Let me add something. How do you turn this puppy on? Down here?
Just press on, up, on. Put your nose. Yeah. You're good, Ernie, you're good.
Oh, I am. This is good? Oh, yeah, cool. So I don't know if you all realize about 6 years ago, the bylaws changed at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and allowed for 6 presidents of chambers throughout the country to be on the board. It never happened before. So we actually have, I think, 15 or so non-chamber board members and 6 that are presidents of chambers throughout the region. So they did that specifically so the chamber, the USHCC, we would be able to help the USHCC understand the needs of the local chambers, because it kind of got lost before, right? So, we've, some of us are pretty new on the board, some of us have been around a while. What we've kind of discovered is we all have these regions, and so we try to do things in the regions to kind of help share information that we gather from what's going on at the USHCC and then maybe in our region, so to speak. And that's what I do. We meet twice a month, every other week. I believe we do that. Monica is on that quite a bit for us from Arizona. Rob Elias, he's not here. But we don't do that in a structured manner. And so I don't know what Region 5 does. I don't know what Region 3 does, 2 does. But what we have come to the realization is that we need to do more for local chambers. As everybody has heard and know, that the Hispanic economy is driving the economy in the United States. And if that's the case, of small businesses throughout the entire country are growing. Hispanic, Latinas are the biggest share of that. So how can we help them more, right? How can we help the local chambers help the small businesses? What do the local chambers need? Because it gets somewhat lost in the USHCC. So we've decided that we really need to do more, and that's what we're trying to do here. And that's why we have this great survey we want you all to take a look at. And we need to hear from you all, because we have ideas, but we really want to hear from you. And what we want to do is take this information to the next board meeting and share that with our bigger board, and at the same time be prepared on what we want to do in Orlando in September, correct? All right, I'm done talking for me.
Hello. Hello, am I on? Okay. And all of what Ernie said is not going to happen unless you participate in the process. We need your feedback. I think we have tried a few things, as Ernie said. It's a situation that we welcome being on this board, understanding the history. We at the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber, the organization I represent in Nashville, we've been involved with the USHCC, attending conferences, being inspired year after year, despite the difficult times that sometimes the organization may have faced, because we saw value in a national organization, and also get to know many of you here in attendance, which I'm so happy to see you year after year coming back. But we didn't know. We were trying to find out what is the best way to serve the role or play the role we're playing and serve you in the process. And to me, it's going to take you reaching out, connecting, responding to the emails we send you, being honest and frank, because the only thing we want to do here until our term ends, and it will end at some point soon, is to represent the interests of those 260, perhaps more Hispanic chambers around the country. And I know it's not going to, realities are not going to change overnight, but it has to start somewhere, and it starts with you also connecting with us, connecting with your national organization. So I hope you can see that there is a serious desire of all of us to make ourselves available, to be that connector from your local realities, which are very different, many of you, depending on where you are, cannot compare to each other, but we all are serving the interests of the small business, I think, and those who support that mission. And I hope it doesn't take long, actually, even during this conference, that we can be hearing from you, and ask for an email, ask for a number, find us. We're here to serve you.
I think I'll go next. And I just want to start from a point of thanking everyone who's here, right? Post-pandemic, it hasn't been an easy ride for a lot of us chamber presidents, even to sustain our operations, to figure out how to pivot, to figure out how to create, revenue streams that weren't there at one time. And at the end of the day, our only mission and our only heartstrong purpose is to, help Latino businesses scale, exist, coexist. I know that every time I think of Latino businesses and I close my eyes, I think of 10 people that really need our support. And then, what is technical assistance? That word has been, carried along all this, week. I've been hearing it back and forth. I know what technical assistance is for our chamber because, we've realized that the sustainability of our chamber is based on technical assistance. And we call it something else. We call it training and technical assistance because everything that we do is based around training and how to make sure that there's a leveling up of Latino businesses that need to happen, right? Whatever scale you're at, wherever you start, whether you're a new entrepreneur, whether you have a sustainable business that now has, a lot of our businesses are okay with having a 20-year existence, but there's no scalability, they're just kind of flat, right? And a lot of that has to do also now with succession planning. So what is that? La gente dice, ¿qué es eso? We need to figure out how to, create a viable way to scale our businesses, to keep them alive, to, now concentrate on the new gig economy that's out there, right? There's this new gig economy with young businesses. They're robust. They're starting. They're an amazing capture when you have a chamber. And a lot of those young people, they don't know what we do. They don't know why we exist and how we can help them. And I think even creating that intergenerational community of entrepreneurs that can pour their knowledge into the new generation is important. So, as a cohort here of leaders, I think when we met a day ago. I feel like it was just, a week ago, but it was a day ago, and we were saying, what can we do for our chambers to help their scalability and their existence? Why are chambers so important to the ecosystem and to the entrepreneurs we serve? I mean, that's a question I think we have right now. Why are you so important? You're important because our small business depend on your information and your investment in them for their growth, right? And a lot of our small businesses, I can tell you about Wisconsin. We have a lot of new, young businesses, a lot of first generation businesses, immigrant groups that are starting businesses at a faster rate than anyone else in our state. And so, they don't know about the SBA. They don't know about the services that are out there, and that's why you guys are here. So as the chamber, as a U.S. Hispanic chamber, I think it's a new day, right? It's a new day now to focus on our chambers, to figure out how you all can be our pipeline. A stronger chamber, U.S. chamber, depends on the ground troops, and that's what everyone here is, right? You guys are the ground troops. I know that I can't do what I do without the 15 beautiful staff members that I have pouring into the community and figuring out how to help them, right? And 15 is a big number, right? Because it's a state. And now we're focusing on rural initiatives because Latinos are not living in these big cities anymore. They're going out and they're venturing out and they're starting businesses. And when you go to, I always say it's almost up there by Canada, but when you see, Mercado Ramos in the northern part of Wisconsin, that Latinos are everywhere, right? So we have to concentrate on supporting them and telling them how they can do this in a way that is not going to impact their families, negatively, by debt, and how it's going to impact their families by leaving a legacy for the next generation, which is what we all want. We have to stay true to the Surgeon General that just spoke, he just left me like impacted, right? The service to others is really important. So I think as a collective here, we're always talking about our chambers and the struggles that we all face. And I talk to many of you, and I hear sometimes we're the ones that are the one-man show in the chambers, and I'll pass it on because I can talk all day, Ruben. But one thing I will say is that I think we've all been there where it's been a struggle to find the liquidity that we need to sustain these chambers. And I think as a collective, I think it's time for us to figure out how to build the U.S. economy, with our Latino families being at the forefront of mobilizing this economy and with all the resources that the U.S. Hispanic Chamber could, support you all in having that vitality to do so.
Thanks, Jessica. And thank you all for being here. You know, we don't exist without the other chambers. So we run a chamber. I've been CEO of the Orange County Hispanic Chamber for 11 years now, and it's been, I was a former banker by trade and basically did that and had a couple businesses prior to that as well. But being a chamber president is challenging and has been extremely rewarding at the same time. So we definitely feel what you're feeling here. So how many people here will be able to join us in Orlando as well? Is everybody planning on okay, great, that's good. So what we wanted to do is get some ideas of what we could build a chamber track. What would be important to you to hear about, learn, understand issues that you're facing on a day-to-day basis? What can we help you with going into that convention in September? So anybody want to?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Can you speak into the mic just so we can capture it on video?
Because God knows I can't scream. No, my question is, where are we represented? Texas. I don't see Myra.
Mayra, okay, unfortunately, I'll answer that.
So I've never heard any.
So unfortunately, Mayra, who is on the board, she could not be with us, but Mayra is the president and CEO of the Louisiana Hispanic Chamber, and but she's still on the board. She's just not here today. Yeah. We're ready for questions. Awesome.
Yes, sir.
I just have a simple question. In the past, United States Hispanic Chamber would have this legislative conference in March. In September, they have the Business Vendor Match Conference. Is that what you're going to do in Orlando, or what are you going to do in Orlando? What's the issues? What's the topics?
I could answer, yes, in the past, we hosted a business expo. I think that's what you're referring to. And yes, we implemented that in Arizona. We reintroduced that business expo. And yes, we will do that again in Orlando. And right now we are building the content, the agenda for the conference. And so that is one of the reasons we gathered you all here today, is to hear from you, to learn from you, so that you can help us build a relevant agenda that matters to you and your members. And so the survey that your region heads put together, our board members, is very important for you to fill out. We will take those learnings and implement them at the conference, at the board level. These 5 individuals, including Mayra, are your representatives on our board of directors. And so hopefully I answered your question. The content is being built out, especially following this very important conversation. Please.
So the question is, we're putting together, or the staff is putting
The video.
together this track for chambers, right? Usually when you go to the conference in the last few years, the businesses sort of get the attention during the 2 or 3 days, and the chambers used to get together on a Saturday ahead of, before, and do a full day. But then when the conference is happening, there was not necessarily a lot of content specifically for chambers. And part of what we want to do is change that. We want to make sure that if you are investing travel and hotel, that you are getting some meaty stuff out of it, right? And so the question is, we generally know what topics because we run chambers, but there might be some really specific things that are really challenging you, that while we will capture them in a multiple choice in a survey, perhaps having a conversation a little bit more in depth about what exactly you need help, what exactly you're challenged with, we can help us understand those survey answers better. So that's simply, and because we don't have a lot of time, but I think some feedback would be useful. Cynthia's listening, so she's on the staff. We're listening, so we're like, okay, we can help shape that so it feels like the investment in Orlando is something worth it for you. And hopefully we'll get even more chambers to attend when they look at the agenda and it's a really rich agenda for them.
Thank you so much. I'm Monica Villalobos with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We just went through the convention. So a couple of, as we debriefed, there were a couple of things. One, I would say there were 2 more tracks that we ran as a Hispanic chamber in the state, but we branded it with USHCC. So we all know that women are the fastest growing segment, Latinas are the fastest growing business segment. We had a women's business track. I would urge you not to do away with that. We started it. I'd love to see that move forward. The second thing we did is we added a youth track. In the women's track, just going back to that for a second, 75 women started their business at the USHCC convention in one day. And so that's really powerful, and I'd love to keep that going. The youth track was really significant because these were kids that were coming from all across the country. Many people come with their families to convention. To be able to send their youth, teenagers, et cetera, to the conference as well is really powerful. It makes it family value. With regard to the chamber track, I know in our regional calls, and Ernie does a great job, we get together every couple of weeks and talk about what are those relevant issues. One is the disruptor model of pricing for general membership, right? The days of having 12 levels of membership based on employees are over. That's done. We have changed our model. We have 2. One is a solopreneur for $250. The other is more than 2 employees for $350. Most of our revenue, less than 5% of our revenue comes from general members. The rest comes from corporate partners. So that's the second piece, I would say, is how do we build out a program, a template, to attract corporate investment so that we can leverage that and not make the bulk of our revenue from the people we're supposed to be serving, right? So those corporate partnerships. I really want to thank the USHCC. We've seen a lot more, I don't want to call it trickle down, now it's pour down, right? In terms of events. We didn't have, programs, we didn't have that before. So programs like Avanzar, Elevate Together are incredibly important. They are turnkey. Any chamber, whether you have one, it's a solo president, CEO, or you have 20 employees, anybody can put together and get sponsorship dollars for a program if it's already kitted up, right? It's in a toolkit for us. So that would be the other piece. And then the last piece I'll say is advocacy. When we're at the Legislative Summit, we talk a lot about advocacy, but at the convention, it would be great to talk about how do you build those relationships with your legislators to have a powerful, unified voice. That's all. That's my little list.
Thanks, Monica.
We have another question back here, but before we take any more questions, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge your United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce team. And so if I could have my colleagues please stand so I can point you out, you all can meet them, ask them any questions. Evelyn Barahona is my colleague at the Educational Fund. She oversees all of the programs at the USHCC. She comes to us from Boston, by way of Boston. She has a philanthropic background. She's worked in the private sector. Please connect with her if you have any questions regarding Avanzar, Elevate Together, any of our programs. Please do that. And we have Jennifer Barrias right here, who hails from San Diego, who is one of we created this position which serves Hispanic business enterprises, and she is your direct contact for your members. Any of your members who are looking to access our programs, Jennifer is your gal. So please talk to her, introduce yourself, and they'll do the same. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut anybody off, but I failed to do that earlier. And so please, next question.
Thank you. Anita Grace, Latino Chamber, Minnesota. I just wanted to bounce off of what Monica said. That Arizona event just completely changed the way that I think about running our chamber. Number one, the programs, you mentioned Elevate Together. That program kind of kept us running. We don't have a lot of revenue or programs. I mean, we're a fairly younger chamber, or at least this version of us. And so that program was already laid out. Not only were we able to successfully execute it and be a good, strong partner to the national chamber, but there also was funding for our chamber, which was a tremendous help for us to be able to cover operating expenses. And so it was turnkey, but I also learned, I was able to take a look at the program and break down the marketing side of it and like what built the program, and realize that when you come up with a program as a chamber, you don't have to be the only person to execute it. They had hired those mentor companies. It took me till round 2 to realize what was going on, but you guys didn't have to do all the mentoring. They just built it into the package. And I learned that too. Monica, thank you. You sent me your media kit for the chamber. When you guys did that Saturday training at the national convention, and the AZHCC shared with us how they break everything down, I still look back, and I followed up, and you gave me the kit that you presented. And so the way that it seems like it should be common sense, but with all the running around that we do, the way that she had it laid out, where it was like, okay, we've got 4 programs up here, and everybody fits into a bucket, because what we're trying to do is go, oh, Chase Bank, this is what's important to you? Okay, let's do one over here. Oh, okay, United Healthcare, you like this? Okay, let's go over here. But you don't have endless resources, so you have to bucket it. So having a successful chamber like the AZHCC or one of your chambers lay out how you do your programming it was tremendously helpful, and I would love to hear more from the larger chambers. We don't have staff, and so just to see how your path's success work out was super valuable to our chamber, and I still have that email with your media kit in my inbox because I look at it all the time. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa Martinez-Davini from Rochester, New York. We are the Rochester Hispanic Business Association is what we're called. And we've been around for 30 years. We seem to be similar in that we don't have staff. We're a volunteer-based board. Even though we've been around for 30 years, like you said, it's kind of a new association in many ways, because it's kind of out with the old guard, in with the new guard, bringing us into the 21st century a little more. And so as the new chair, I've been chair for a year, I've been on the board for 9. My colleague here, Augustine, who's our treasurer, we're trying to just figure out how to add value so that our members and just the community as a whole understands what we do and what we can do for them. But that's kind of why we're here, is we're trying to just learn. So I would say maybe something for newer chambers, newer groups that are just, even if, like I said, we've been there around in Rochester for 30 years, but in many ways we're new. And so I'm here trying to learn as much as possible of how do we add value? Where are these resources? Is there a receptacle somewhere that lists all of them? Where can I go for ideas, for templates, for toolkits, for all of those things that I need to build and sustain a successful chamber? That's the goal, just like this workshop is called.
So, just to follow up on the question, is what you're looking for, are you looking to hire your first employee? So how do you get from a volunteer-based chamber
not
to
necessarily
hire the first employee? No, so
just
you're just
ideas
looking,
on programs, on speakers, on events, on corporate partners, on being able, anything that adds value to our membership. So that we can grow that, because we've been stagnant for many years. The old guard has kind of not renewed the events and the programs. We pretty much do the same thing every year.
So something along revitalizing your programming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
But and what you said about the first employee, like that would be important to our chamber. And I know we're not the only one, too, the first staffed employee or paid staff.
It's dead. Okay, no, it's on. Okay. And Anita, I know you're working so hard, with everything you're doing and trying to reinvent the chamber. A lot of chambers, have to come from a volunteer, board. I'm the first executive director of my organization, right? And so what they did is they created a proposal to the state saying that the way you would energize and build inclusion, because it's under the Economic Equity Act of our state, And sometimes it's just looking into the state's like economic department. You know, I know ours is called Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, but every state has like their commerce department, right? And especially with this administration, there's a lens on economic justice. So I know that our board wrote a proposal. It was a $50,000 proposal to bring on their first executive director, and that was in 2016, okay? And that proposal was funded fully. So what they did is they took $15,000 of that proposal to pay a headhunter to find me, which I was right around the corner. They could have just put it in the paper, right? But that in itself, then they offered me this like very minimal. I was in a really like needy space. I was like, whatever, lo que venga, right? So I had just arrived from a Florida chamber, and I needed to figure out how to get back into the work that I love, which is empowering small businesses. But that chamber, they did something very cool, is then they found a match. So they found, they got the 50,000, they found a couple of sponsors to match, again, on economic equity. And what that did is created sustainability. Now you have $100,000, and you're paying this new executive director 50, and you have 50 for operations, right? So they knew that when I came in, I had to figure out how to raise the rest. And that's the power of bringing your first employee, right? And so sometimes it's just bringing someone part-time. That's all you can afford. You can afford $25,000. You have a corporation that's out there. You're going to say, "Mira, Bank of America, I need you to match this $50,000 that the state's going to match," even if the state didn't say yes yet, because that's what I do all the time, So, we have to get creative. I'll give you an example of what we did in the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin has as many people as maybe some of your cities do as Latinos, right? As far as like, we have about 350,000 Latinos in the state, maybe 400,000. Our census sometimes will not give us the right calibration. But the state, they have a growing need to serve this diverse population. They don't want to be known as number 50 on the economic scale, and that's what we're known as, for supporting minority businesses. So what our governor did, and he did a great job, we lobbied it, and that's something that maybe that we have to talk about. How do you lobby your governments, right? How do you connect, the dots with, the local alderman, the common council, whoever the commissioners, I don't know. When I'm in Texas, it's a whole different government, right? So, how do you lobby for the sustainability of these chambers? Because what you are providing is economic sustainability in communities. Because, we're now hiring at a fast rate. We're 1 out of 6 Latino, 1 out of 6, and even in our state, it's 1 out of 5. But 1 out of 6 new businesses are Latino-owned. So, the fact that these chambers are providing service to the next majority of business owners in the states is a service. So what I come from a congressional background, and what I know is if you're providing a service to your community, it's for some worth. It has value, especially when it's an economic value, right? Because the dollar has the mighty power. So I would say that we have to reinvent the way our chambers are operating. We're no longer the chambers that have these little parties and just want to get together and talk about business and connect. It's not there anymore. It's really about the sustainability and the elevation of Latino businesses from where they're at to where they could be. And I always say my job is to create competitive businesses. It's not, and at whatever level that is, right? It's competitive businesses that are in the market, that they will succeed and they will grow and they will employ and then they will contribute back to their local economies. My rebellious self, I always say, power to the people. We're going to get the Latinos to own a lot of businesses, and we're going to change the laws, and we're going to, get more civically minded business owners out there, because our local communities need more Latinos on boards and more Latinos on. But on the other realm, these small communities, and I'll tell you, Wisconsin, it's a browning of rural America, and so a lot of Latinos are now moving into these. Rochester, mira, right? They're not in Manhattan no more. They're going that route, right? And so they're moving outside of these major cities. And so now these major cities are coming to the chamber saying, excuse me, but we have a majority minority Latino enrollment in our schools. And then we say, we love to help and serve your communities. And then where does the value proposition come in? That's where you say, our programming, per person, it costs $3,000 to put a person through an incubator program at the chamber. And so if you want 10 people, it's going to be, whatever. I can't, I'm a chamber president, I can't even count. But we multiply it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really great, I'm so sorry to cut you off, Jessica, but that's just a really great segue. I served as the economic development director for a city and know firsthand that there are so many resources to access, chambers, associations that represent underserved and minority groups, but we should definitely have that conversation. So I flagged that as a critical topic. And Ernie, before I pass it to you, because I have somebody that's he's raised his hand for quite some time, so I'm gonna allow him the question, and then Ernie, I'll pass it to you, okay?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists. My name is Carlos Sierra. I am the director for the International Chamber of Commerce. I run the international operation via chapters, where we have our president here, Hugo Cartagena. He actually made sure that I made it today, so I want to thank him for inviting me. So we have the international chapter set up in a way that we can also help small businesses here in, either in the States or either nationally. So I'm saying this because, like, I joined the chamber as a coffee importer, and I needed some help. So part of what was done was to connect me with, like, the Dominican consulate and, like, the Jamaican consulate. And it's important to mention that because as you look at doing international business, you can also look at our president and ourselves. So we are putting together something very interesting at our chamber, and it's a cooperative. We all understand the importance of accessing capital. So I'm bringing that up, because we're looking to also put funds back into small businesses nationwide. So with that, I want to make sure that we, if any of you are interested in working with us and collaborating with us, we have our president here. We can always follow up and discuss later about that. Thank you so much.
Perfect segue for you, Ernie. International trade, import, export.
Yeah, but I really want to talk about data because, so I have here a QR code that will get you the information from the Latino Donor Collaborative. That will give you information to take to your policymakers about how quick, or what's happening nationwide with the Hispanic economy. Okay, so that's really important. I heard the gentleman from the census talk about the economic census. I think people should go and try to get information relative to your area in the economic census. There's also the LBAN study that was done. And why I'm telling you this is, like it or not, for people maybe not here, the Hispanic economy's growing. And what we need to do is help them grow more efficiently, smarter, scale quicker, because it's growing no matter what. Okay, it really is, and we need to capture it. And if you use this data, like Cynthia knows from she was in economic development, if an organization comes up and says, you know what, here's the data, I think if you give us $25,000, we can, this is what we're gonna do with that, and we can help these companies grow and scale. We can do that. If you go to the governor's office, if you go to the state economic development or commerce, you have data that shows that what you're trying to do isn't because you think you need it for you, it's you need it for the state. You need it for the growing economy. It's happening, folks, and let's do it and help them scale and grow. And you guys, as the local chambers, are the grassroots organization that's gonna help them. And that's why we're here today, because we want to do whatever we can to help you all. We want to look back in 10 years and go, wow, we created a movement that changed the Hispanic economy and local Hispanic chambers. So take a look at that. Oh,
Ernie?
Yeah.
Okay. So question for, one second. And you will have the the floor. So how many of you are able to actually go to the census or feel comfortable going to the census and drawing data and really analyzing the population and the economy in the region that you, so you all have that ability? Do you feel like having a session with the census on how to analyze and figure out how many businesses in your geography that are in certain industry or another industry would be helpful?
That'd be good to put on the survey.
Monica? Yeah, and then Monica. Yes, please.
I just wanted to echo the comment that you made from the Arizona Chamber on sharing data or information about membership. But I think it's when we share best practices. I think it's really important. Jennifer has that Dine Latino, and she had it, and she shared it with other chambers, and it was a great example. I think that we need to share programs like that so we can emanate and copy. I also want to give kudos to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, because you're right, before when they didn't have chamber presidents on the board, it wasn't a membership service organization. So, but it's really good. But I just wanted to share, if chambers could share best practices on how they do stuff, how they handle memberships, we can all help each other.
Yeah, I like that one.
Right there, yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Monica Hernandez, I'm the president for the First Coast Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. First, I want to start by saying that, you know, I've been coming to these conventions for the past 4 or 5 years, and I've really have learned and implemented a lot of what's been taught. But really, a lot of, or most of the takeaways that I have received and learned from is by having conversations with presidents. By trade, I'm in banking, have been in banking for 18 years, and that's really what I know and breathe and can talk to you about trades, et cetera. But from a chamber standpoint, I can tell you that my chamber has tripled its membership in 4 years. We are the fastest growing minority. I don't know the abasto, right? There is just so many people that reach out to us that want us to help them. We don't have an elected Hispanic official. We don't have a Hispanic on the school board. So all of that is happening, and it continues to move, right? Because we continue to ask for that. So I think from my perspective, what I really do need, help and support is how do we continue to monetize, right? I know I briefly spoke to Jennifer and Ernie earlier this week, and we are doing the right things, right? I really do believe, and we see, we're on the newspapers all the time. We are approached by the media. We continue to be approached by corporate partners, but the how-to guide, right? Like I really would like he said, what Monica said, is the best practices. How are you guys monetizing to making sure that you are getting equally the same value that you're giving them, right? Because from a CSR perspective, we have to hire minority-owned businesses. We have to make sure that our professionals are reflective of our communities. From a government perspective, is equally the same. So whenever I am providing those services, I need to make sure that equally as I'm elevating them, that they're elevating us and paying us for that, for the work, right? All of my, my membership and my staff, right? They're part-time, but we do work crazy hours, and half of the time we don't really get paid for the work that we're doing. Our board, I have required my board, for every board member, they have to lead an event. And I am very intentional in saying, congratulations, here is the event you're leading, right? So, but again, that's not sustainable. If we're talking about how do I make sure that in 10 years from now, that the chamber is going to continue to be successful. Because if it has that advocacy level, again, my Hispanic business owners will continue to be successful. Because one thing I can tell you is that at least through the pandemic, as grants were given out at the local level, not that many Hispanics benefited from it, right? So that's where the role of a Hispanic chamber is so critical, to be able to advocate and say, hey, our community is here, we need to benefit from it. So again, I think one is monetizing. How do we monetize with, with the programs that we have, improving them, those best practices. Two is, continuing to create that partnership at the national level. I'm a huge fan of the USHCC. I think all of you know me by now. But it's how do we do more? Because again, if if at the local level, if we're successful, the USHCC is successful, but most importantly, our membership is successful, which really, you know, that's why I do. You know, I moved to the US and we struggled with my mom as she wanted to open her business. And back in the, you know, back at that time, we weren't able to get to where we wanted to because I didn't have $10,000, right? I mean, today would have been a whole different story had I known the resources that, you know, many businesses don't have access to. So monetizing, you know, continuing to align the local chambers to what the national chamber is doing. And then just getting access to those resources, those programs that are, you know, that I hear that are so beneficial. I can tell you sometimes I have to just knock on the door and say, hey, how do I do this? Like, I need them, I want them. How do I make it happen?
Right over here.
Thank you. So far, just to make sure that we're capturing the information properly. So we've heard about the success of the women's business track. So we've heard about the youth track, right? We've heard about pricing strategies for membership, understanding that the whole tier, a lot of the membership, you know, tiers are going away and how to best approach that. We've heard about building, you know, templates or strategies for corporate partnerships. We've heard how to build relationships so that you can get, you know, to build your advocacy strategy. How do you get that done? We've heard about program development, and I think not only program development, but we recently just heard about how do you monetize chamber activities and programs. So I think a lot of that is like fundraising, sponsorships, like that mix, right? Some chambers who want to get to strategies to hire, how do you get to that first employee, right? And revitalizing chamber programs for chambers that have been around for quite a while and feel like you need a little bit of a boost. And obviously all of these with best practices. So you want to hear not only the theory, but you want to see how is it that it was applied by a chamber successfully, right? And then we heard a little bit about census data and collection and see how you can really make those. When you're at the state level, it's easy, but when you have one of these geographies that is, when you go to the census or you go to a report, I have the state data, but I don't have my city data. That always is a problem when you're trying to get local dollars. So maybe we can figure out a way of how to help you address that. Because the donor is great, but you know, when they tell me, well, that's national, well, what's happening in Philadelphia? And I'm like, I don't know. I know it's a good story, but I don't have the numbers for that. So we'll help you get the numbers for that. Am I missing anything? I haven't heard technology. I haven't heard other stuff. So.
Right here, she's right here to
Olga
the left.
Lopez
She's
from
been
Dallas,
waiting.
Texas.
Yes.
First off, thank you for being here and representing, gathering information about what's important to the presidents, to the chambers. I've been a part of the chamber for, I can't even tell you how many years, but in one form or fashion, I've participated not only as a member, but as a corporate, and then now I'm the chair of the Greater Dallas. President's not in the room today, but I felt like it was important to ask the question. One is, in terms of technology, is there a way that we can learn those best practices? And I think about Mobilize, L-band, how we communicate in this ecosystem, right, that we've created, and we're able to learn from our partners, our peers, and even other cohorts. And when there's a problem to solve, people post, right? Whether it's I need to hire, or has anyone ever dealt with, or there's construction in this area, does anyone have? So there's so many different topics that occur, and the technology that they use has been very useful just to communicate. So maybe it's a president's forum that only presidents communicate. And the other thing that I had in mind, like I said, I've been a part of the chamber for many years, and I don't know who my regional representative is, and have never heard from them. And neither has the president, because I've asked. But, yeah, but what are the expectations? How do we know what the roles, your roles are as those representatives? What should we expect as chamber members? How are you helping me advocate for my chamber? Because if you don't know what topics are important to me today so that you can represent me in the in the conference coming up in Orlando, then how do I know that what I'm experiencing, the hardships that I'm having or the successes that I'm having are being shared with the rest of the group? So to me, that's very important. And I take it to heart that I represent our entrepreneurs, and I do my job well, I believe, and you know, I hold myself accountable for that. And so it's very important that someone is hearing me and advocating for me as a chamber, and that it's trickling up and down, right? And so again, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Can I respond to that? So that's exactly why we really want you all to participate in this. Everything you just said. So what we need is the information from you all to go back to our board and say we need resources. We need resources to help the local chambers. We have an idea of what that looks like, but we can't. We need to have your support to say they're asking for it, they're demanding it actually, and now we have to resource that. And I think it'll be good. So please, please do the survey, give us your honest feedback. We need to take this information and we want to do exactly what, you know. So I have Region 2, and we know every Hispanic chamber, and literally there's only about 4 of them that actually participate. We send out an email every week for the meeting, but only 4 or 5 chambers actually participate. Even one just 55 miles north of us doesn't participate with it. I don't know why, but so there's an effort for that.
Thank you for sharing that with us, really. I have heard this. And I think I said that we joined in 2005, and the first time that I brought a delegation to a convention, I was so impressed of what I saw that I wanted Nashville to be like that. I wanted to have that strength of so many, like 2,000 or more Hispanic entrepreneurs. That was powerful. So I admire the work of this organization, despite the fact that at some point it represented chambers, and after that it did not. And now it's back to include chambers within their equation. But I'm also amazed at, this is kind of a silly comparison, but people seem to follow influencers or even soccer. I'm not such a fan of sports, but they know everything that is happening with the team, what they're going to do, what's the name of everyone, and who is married or not. I encourage you to please visit our USHCC webpage. Everything is there. It's also every region, and if you're part of that region, reach out to the USHCC. And if you haven't connected, because we organized a few meetings virtually, and there was, I'll say, poor attendance or poor responses, even though I made the effort to even call different of those states or leaders there. And it wasn't easy, and I know you're super busy. Sometimes you cannot find a time for everyone to be in there. But at least you had my email or an email from us. If that doesn't work, remember, we are here temporarily, and there will be other people coming to take this spot. Just reach out and to the USHCC and tell them, I want to connect with my representative, and you bet you will get, there is a question in the back.
Yes, and before we go to another question, and just in the interest of time, and I don't want to rush anyone. That's why it's back to Ernie's and Jennifer's and the board's point. Please, please fill out this survey, because we're going to take that data that we collect incredibly seriously. But I will say that I will make a commitment to all of you who we scanned you on the way in. We'll make sure to email you your region representative, their contact information, and so we'll make sure to do that before the summit is over. Okay, we have room for like one more question, and then we can mingle, and you're welcome. You have access to these 5 board members here. Yes, that's another
Make sure
great
your
question.
dues are paid. So what happens is we receive the list of the chamber leaders from the USHCC. And so we email the individuals on that list that we are provided. If that contact information, because we I don't have the power to decide who's in my region, right? I have the power, my responsibility is to communicate with the individuals that the USHCC gives me. So they give us the list. If that information is not accurate, you're not gonna get the information. I don't have any way of really truly verifying. So in some ways, the information flows. You pay your dues. If you're current, you show up in the list, and the list gets trickled down to us. If you have staff members that change and things of that nature, it's important that you keep those lists updated, because that's the way that we get to you. Oftentimes, we've had people from business organizations in my region that are not active at the chamber want to be part of the group, and we've had to tell them, you have to go through the USHCC in order to get the communication. So it's there's a little bit of administrative work that needs to be done. But if you feel that you're not getting the information, do reach out to USHCC. They'll make sure that the representatives get it.
To your point, Jennifer, the fee is very nominal, and if you are a startup chamber and are having a hard time with that nominal fee, I think it's $100. Please talk to me. We'll work it out. One more question, and I just want to remind the president and CEOs in the room, the president's Hispanic Chamber Roundtable will take place after this workshop. So one more question. We'll adjourn. Please scan the survey, fill it out. It's like 6 questions, very straight to the point. There's room for comments, but please fill that out. Yes.
Just want to kind of piggyback a little bit of what the room has been saying. It's about accessing our representative at the board. I've been there, and I know. So, and I'm going to put it here too. And the other thing is, I missed the Saturday in Phoenix because it was late, the notification. And I think it's very important for us to know on time, because I do things, ahead of time. And if there is a need of, I haven't heard about training in organization, like in how to do bylaws and how to continue to be, like organized. I haven't heard that. I'm not sure if the presidents here need that, but I'm taking one that is just awesome. And it's good to hear those things coming from experts, and I have them, if it is.
Absolutely, and so duly noted, we'll add communication, notification to our chamber presidents, to our attendees with ample time to prepare and attend. We'll take note of that. Yes, closing remarks.
Speaking of
Yuri.
that last comment, I think here is what we can all realize. Not all chambers are the same size and have the same needs. And I want you to rest assured that we are not here just thinking about large chambers or medium size. I represent a very small chamber. I understand exactly what that is, because I was from almost the beginning 20 years ago or so. So you please count on that for us, because that would be excellent. I think is a huge percentage of the attendance are chambers that are in the beginning or early stages of their development. Right.
Point. With that, thank you all for participating. Again, I will include my contact information in addition to your chamber rep and your region rep. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Let any one of us know if you have questions. Thank you.